The Bitfinex cryptocurrency exchange headquarters in San Francisco buzzed with the usual controlled chaos of a 24/7 trading operation when security analyst Persephone Blackwater first noticed the anomalous blockchain transactions that would eventually expose one of the largest cryptocurrency heists in history. It was 3:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning in August, and most of the exchange's staff had gone home hours earlier, leaving only the overnight security team to monitor the endless streams of digital asset transfers that flowed through their servers like an electronic river, carrying billions of dollars worth of virtual currency between traders, institutions, and speculators around the world. Persephone had been working the night shift for 18 months, a schedule she had chosen specifically because it paid a premium and allowed her to pursue her computer science degree during daytime hours at UC Berkeley. At 26, she possessed the kind of methodical attention to detail that made her exceptionally effective at identifying suspicious patterns in cryptocurrency transactions, a skill that had already helped Bitfinex prevent several smaller theft attempts and regulatory violations that could have resulted in significant financial losses and government sanctions. But the blockchain anomalies she was observing on her monitoring screens that morning were unlike anything she had encountered during her tenure at the exchange. 69,000 Bitcoin were being moved through a complex series of transactions that appeared designed to obscure their origin and destination, using sophisticated mixing services and multi-signature wallets that suggested the involvement of highly skilled cryptocurrency experts rather than opportunistic amateur hackers. The sheer scale of the theft was staggering even by cryptocurrency industry standards. At current market prices, 69,000 Bitcoin represented approximately $4.3 billion, making it potentially the largest digital asset theft in history and certainly the most significant security breach in Bitfinex's 8-year operating history. The stolen cryptocurrency had originated from the exchange's cold storage wallets, which were supposed to be disconnected from internet access and protected by multiple layers of physical and digital security measures. Persephone's initial investigation revealed that the theft had occurred through what appeared to be an inside job involving individuals with administrative access to the exchange's most sensitive security systems. The attackers had systematically bypassed multiple authentication protocols and had demonstrated intimate knowledge of Bitfinex's operational procedures, suggesting that they were either current or former employees with extensive technical privileges within the organization. The discovery sent shockwaves through Bitfinex's executive team and triggered an immediate crisis response that involved law enforcement agencies, cybersecurity experts, and blockchain forensic specialists who were called in to analyze the theft and attempt to trace the stolen cryptocurrency through the complex web of transactions that the perpetrators had used to obscure their activities. The FBI's Cryptocurrency Crime Unit, led by Special Agent Cordelia Stormwind, took over the investigation and began the painstaking process of identifying the individuals responsible for the unprecedented heist. The investigation quickly focused on 2 former Bitfinex employees who had left the company under suspicious circumstances approximately 6 months before the theft occurred. Lysander and Thaddeus Ravensong were brothers who had worked in the exchange's technical operations division, where they had access to the administrative tools and security protocols that would have been necessary to execute such a sophisticated attack on the cold storage systems. Lysander, the older brother at 32, had served as Bitfinex's lead blockchain security engineer for 3 years before his abrupt resignation following a dispute with management over security policies and compensation. His colleagues described him as brilliant, but increasingly paranoid about government surveillance of cryptocurrency exchanges, and he had repeatedly warned that traditional financial institutions and regulatory agencies were plotting to destroy the digital asset ecosystem through coordinated attacks and excessive regulation. Thaddeus, 28 years old and a former systems administrator responsible for maintaining the exchange's server infrastructure, had been terminated from his position just 2 weeks after his brother's departure. Official records indicated that his dismissal was due to unauthorized access to sensitive systems and violation of company security protocols, but the specific details of his misconduct had been kept confidential to avoid damaging the exchange's reputation and regulatory standing. The brothers had grown up in Portland, Oregon, where their father had worked as a software engineer for Nike, while their mother managed a small accounting firm that specialized in serving technology startups and creative professionals. Both boys had shown exceptional aptitude for mathematics and computer science from an early age, and they had been encouraged by their parents to pursue technical education and careers in the rapidly growing technology sector. Lysander had graduated from Oregon State University with a degree in computer science and cybersecurity, while Thaddeus had completed a 2-year associate degree in network administration before immediately finding employment in the cryptocurrency industry, which was experiencing explosive growth and desperately needed skilled technical professionals who could manage the complex systems required to operate digital asset exchanges. The brothers had relocated to San Francisco in 2019 when Lysander was recruited by Bitfinex to help improve their security infrastructure in response to increasing regulatory scrutiny and a series of high-profile cryptocurrency exchange hacks that had highlighted the industry's vulnerability to sophisticated cyber attacks. Thaddeus had followed his older brother to California and had been hired by the same company 6 months later, creating a family employment situation that would later be viewed as a significant security risk that should have triggered additional oversight and monitoring. FBI agent Cordelia Stormwind's investigation revealed that the Ravensong brothers had spent months planning their theft, carefully studying Bitfinex's security procedures and identifying vulnerabilities that could be exploited to gain unauthorized access to the cold storage wallets containing the exchange's largest cryptocurrency reserves. They had used their legitimate administrative access to create backdoors and override security protocols while appearing to perform routine maintenance and system updates. The complexity of their operation suggested months of preparation and sophisticated technical knowledge of both cryptocurrency technology and cybersecurity systems. They had carefully timed their attack to coincide with a scheduled system upgrade that would create confusion and delay detection of their unauthorized activities, and they had implemented multiple layers of misdirection designed to make it appear that the theft was the work of external hackers rather than insider threats. Most impressively, from a technical standpoint, they had successfully moved the stolen Bitcoin through a network of intermediary wallets and mixing services that made it extremely difficult to trace the final destination of the cryptocurrency. Blockchain analysis revealed that the theft had been divided into thousands of smaller transactions that were routed through different cryptocurrency exchanges, privacy coins, and decentralized finance protocols in a pattern that demonstrated sophisticated understanding of digital forensics and law enforcement investigation techniques. The brothers had vanished immediately after the theft was discovered, abandoning their San Francisco apartments and leaving behind only minimal personal possessions and no indication of their intended destination. Their disappearance was so complete and well executed that it suggested advanced planning and possibly the assistance of other individuals who were experienced in avoiding law enforcement detection and international travel using false identities. Agent Stormwind's team worked closely with international law enforcement agencies and cryptocurrency exchanges around the world to monitor blockchain transactions and identify any attempts to convert the stolen Bitcoin into traditional currencies or other digital assets. The investigation involved complex technical analysis of thousands of cryptocurrency transactions and required coordination with agencies in dozens of countries where the brothers might have attempted to launder their stolen digital assets. 6 months after the theft, the investigation had produced frustratingly little concrete evidence about the brothers' whereabouts or the location of the stolen cryptocurrency. Blockchain analysis had traced portions of the Bitcoin through various mixing services and exchanges, but the trail consistently went cold when the cryptocurrency was converted into privacy-focused digital assets or moved through jurisdictions with limited cooperation in international financial investigations. The psychological pressure on the Ravensong family was intense as FBI agents conducted repeated interviews with their parents, extended family members, and former friends in an attempt to identify contacts or resources that might be providing assistance to the fugitive brothers. The parents, Lawrence and Evangelina Ravensong, maintained that they had no contact with their sons since their disappearance and were shocked to learn about their alleged involvement in such a massive cryptocurrency theft. "We raised them to be honest, hard-working young men who would use their technical skills to build better systems and help companies protect their customers," Evangelina told Agent Stormwind during one of several interviews. "I can't understand how they could have justified stealing so much money from people who trusted the exchange to keep their investments safe. The impact of the theft on Bitfinex was severe, forcing the exchange to temporarily halt all customer withdrawals while conducting a comprehensive security audit and rebuilding their cold storage systems with additional protections against insider threats. The company's reputation in the cryptocurrency community was damaged significantly, and several major institutional clients moved their assets to competing exchanges that were perceived as having more robust security measures. Customer lawsuits began almost immediately after news of the theft became public, with cryptocurrency holders demanding compensation for their losses and alleging that Bitfinex had failed to implement adequate security measures to protect customer assets. The legal proceedings threatened to bankrupt the exchange and highlighted the regulatory gaps that existed in cryptocurrency industry, oversight, and consumer protection. The investigation took a dramatic turn nearly 2 years after the initial theft, when blockchain analysis finally identified a pattern of cryptocurrency movements that suggested the brothers were systematically liquidating small portions of their stolen Bitcoin through a network of cryptocurrency exchanges in Southeast Asia. The transactions were small enough to avoid triggering automated suspicious activity reports, but the cumulative pattern was distinctive enough to be identified by sophisticated analysis software. Agent Stormwind's team worked with law enforcement agencies in Thailand, Vietnam, and Malaysia to monitor cryptocurrency exchanges and identify individuals who might be conducting the suspicious transactions on behalf of the Ravensong brothers. The investigation required months of patient surveillance and coordination with foreign law enforcement agencies that had varying levels of expertise in cryptocurrency crime investigation. The breakthrough came when Thai authorities identified a series of cryptocurrency transactions that were being conducted by an American expatriate living in Bangkok who matched Thaddeus Ravensong's physical description and was using identification documents that appeared to be sophisticated forgeries. Surveillance revealed that the individual was living a modest lifestyle that was inconsistent with having access to billions of dollars in stolen cryptocurrency, suggesting that he might be a subordinate player in a larger criminal organization. Thai police arrested the suspect during a coordinated operation that also seized several computers, mobile devices, and cryptocurrency hardware wallets that contained evidence linking him to the Bitfinex theft. The arrest revealed that Thaddeus had been living in Bangkok for over a year under the false identity of Derek Morrison, working as a freelance software developer while slowly liquidating small amounts of the stolen Bitcoin to fund his living expenses. Under interrogation, Thaddeus initially maintained his innocence and claimed that he had been living in Thailand as a legitimate expatriate, pursuing freelance software development opportunities. However, when confronted with blockchain evidence linking his cryptocurrency transactions to the Bitfinex theft, he eventually agreed to cooperate with authorities in exchange for more lenient treatment and protection from potential retaliation by other members of the criminal conspiracy. Thaddeus's confession revealed that the theft had been planned and executed with the assistance of a broader network of cryptocurrency criminals who specialized in laundering stolen digital assets and helping cybercriminals evade law enforcement detection. The brothers had not acted alone, but had been recruited by an international criminal organization that targeted cryptocurrency exchanges and provided technical expertise, logistical support, and money laundering services in exchange for a significant percentage of the stolen assets. Most significantly, Thaddeus revealed that his older brother Lysander had not disappeared entirely, but had been captured by the criminal organization and was being held against his will to ensure Thaddeus's continued cooperation with their money laundering operations. The revelation transformed the investigation from a simple theft case into a complex international kidnapping and organized crime investigation that involved multiple law enforcement agencies and required sophisticated undercover operations. According to Thaddeus's account, the brothers had initially believed they were working with a legitimate cryptocurrency consulting firm that helped exchanges improve their security and recover stolen assets. They had been gradually drawn into increasingly illegal activities through a combination of financial incentives, psychological manipulation, and eventually direct threats against their safety and the safety of their family members. The criminal organization had promised them that they would be able to keep a substantial portion of any cryptocurrency they helped steal, but had instead taken control of most of the Bitcoin and had used the threat of exposure to law enforcement to force their continued cooperation with money laundering and other criminal activities. Thaddeus claimed that he had been trying to accumulate enough resources to rescue his brother and escape from the criminal organization when he was arrested by Thai authorities. Agent Stormwind's team worked with international law enforcement agencies and cybersecurity experts to verify Thaddeus's claims and identify the members of the criminal organization that had allegedly recruited the brothers and stolen most of the Bitcoin from the Bitfinex theft. The investigation required sophisticated undercover operations and coordination with law enforcement agencies in multiple countries where the organization was believed to be operating. The search for Lysander Ravensong led to a criminal compound in rural Cambodia, where the organization operated a sophisticated cryptocurrency laundering operation that processed stolen digital assets from cybercriminals around the world. The facility was disguised as a legitimate technology consulting firm, but actually functioned as a high-tech criminal enterprise that employed dozens of technical experts who had been recruited or coerced into participating in various forms of cryptocurrency crime. The rescue operation was conducted by a joint task force that included FBI agents, Thai police officers, Cambodian military personnel, and cybersecurity experts who were responsible for securing the technical evidence that would be needed to prosecute the members of the criminal organization. The operation was complicated by the facility's remote location, sophisticated security measures, and the presence of multiple hostages who were being held against their will. Lysander was found in poor physical condition after nearly 2 years of captivity, during which he had been forced to use his technical expertise to help the criminal organization launder cryptocurrency stolen from various exchanges and individual victims around the world. His rescue revealed the existence of dozens of other technical professionals who had been kidnapped or coerced into participating in the organization's criminal activities. The criminal organization had been operating for over 5 years and had processed billions of dollars worth of stolen cryptocurrency through sophisticated laundering operations that involved multiple countries and hundreds of cryptocurrency exchanges. The investigation revealed connections to other major cryptocurrency thefts and cybercriminal enterprises, making it one of the largest international organized crime cases in FBI history. The recovery of most of the stolen Bitfinex Bitcoin was complicated by the fact that the cryptocurrency had been mixed with assets stolen from dozens of other victims and had been converted into various other digital assets that were stored in wallets controlled by the criminal organization. Blockchain forensics experts worked for months to identify and segregate the Bitfinex assets from other stolen cryptocurrency and trace the complex series of transactions that had been used to obscure the movement of funds. Ultimately, law enforcement agencies were able to recover approximately 58,000 of the original 69,000 stolen Bitcoin, representing the largest cryptocurrency asset recovery in law enforcement history. The recovered assets were returned to Bitfinex, which used them to compensate customers who had lost money as a result of the theft, and to strengthen the exchange's security infrastructure to prevent similar attacks in the future. The Ravensong brothers both cooperated extensively with law enforcement investigations and provided crucial testimony that helped prosecutors secure convictions against the leaders of the international criminal organization. In exchange for their cooperation, they received reduced sentences and were placed in federal witness protection programs to shield them from potential retaliation by other members of the criminal network. Lysander was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison for his role in the original theft, but his sentence was reduced to 5 years in recognition of his cooperation and the fact that he had been held against his will for a significant portion of the time since the crime was committed. Thaddeus received a sentence of 6 years, which was similarly reduced to 4 years, due to his assistance in the investigation and recovery operations. The case became a landmark in cryptocurrency law enforcement and demonstrated the growing sophistication of both cryptocurrency criminals and the law enforcement agencies that were responsible for investigating digital asset crimes. The international cooperation required to resolve the case established new protocols for cross-border cryptocurrency investigations and led to strengthened relationships between law enforcement agencies in the United States and Southeast Asia. Agent Stormwind was promoted to lead the FBI's cryptocurrency crime division and became a nationally recognized expert in digital asset investigations and international cybercrime cooperation. She frequently spoke at law enforcement conferences and training programs about the lessons learned from the Bitfinex case and the importance of international cooperation in addressing cryptocurrency crimes that often crossed multiple jurisdictions. Persephone Blackwater, the security analyst whose careful attention to blockchain anomalies had first identified the theft, was recruited by the FBI to serve as a technical advisor on cryptocurrency investigations and eventually became a special agent specializing in digital forensics and blockchain analysis. Her work on the Bitfinex case had demonstrated the crucial importance of rapid detection and response in cryptocurrency theft investigations. The Bitfinex exchange implemented comprehensive security improvements based on the lessons learned from the theft, including enhanced insider threat detection systems, multi-party authorization requirements for large cryptocurrency movements, and regular security audits conducted by independent cybersecurity firms. The exchange eventually recovered its reputation in the cryptocurrency community and became recognized as having some of the strongest security measures in the industry. 5 years after the initial theft, the Ravensong brothers were released from federal prison and began new lives under assumed identities provided by the Witness Protection Program. They had served their sentences and provided valuable assistance to law enforcement agencies, but they would forever be associated with one of the most significant cryptocurrency crimes in history. Lysander found work as a cybersecurity consultant, specializing in helping cryptocurrency exchanges improve their security measures and prevent insider threats. His unique perspective as someone who had both perpetrated and been victimized by cryptocurrency crime made him effective at identifying vulnerabilities that might not be apparent to security experts who had never experienced the criminal side of the industry. Thaddeus pursued a career in law enforcement, eventually becoming a federal agent specializing in cryptocurrency investigations. His technical background and first-hand experience with international cryptocurrency crime made him valuable for investigating and prosecuting similar cases, and he became a frequent instructor at FBI training programs focused on digital asset investigations. The international criminal organization that had recruited and controlled the brothers was dismantled through a series of coordinated law enforcement operations that resulted in over 60 arrests and the recovery of cryptocurrency assets worth more than $8 billion. The case demonstrated the global nature of cryptocurrency crime and the importance of international cooperation in addressing digital asset theft and money laundering. 10 years after the Bitfinex theft, the cryptocurrency industry had matured significantly in terms of security practices and regulatory oversight. The lessons learned from the Ravensong case had influenced security standards and best practices throughout the industry, and similar large-scale thefts had become much more difficult to execute due to improved technical safeguards and enhanced law enforcement capabilities. The story of the Ravensong brothers became a cautionary tale that was frequently referenced in cryptocurrency security training programs and academic courses about cybercrime and digital asset protection. Their case illustrated the complex factors that could lead individuals to participate in sophisticated financial crimes, including the vulnerability of technical professionals to recruitment by criminal organizations and the psychological and physical coercion that was often used to maintain control over unwilling participants. Agent Stormwind, now retired from the FBI and working as a private cybersecurity consultant, often reflected on the Bitfinex case as a turning point in law enforcement's understanding of cryptocurrency crime and international cybercriminal organizations. The investigation had required unprecedented cooperation between multiple agencies and countries, and had established protocols and relationships that continued to be valuable for addressing similar cases years later. The Ravensong case taught us that cryptocurrency crime is rarely as simple as it initially appears, she would tell audiences at security conferences and training seminars. What looked like a straightforward insider theft turned out to be part of a much larger international criminal enterprise that was exploiting vulnerabilities in both technology systems and human psychology to steal billions of dollars from victims around the world. The case also highlighted the importance of treating cybercriminals as potential victims themselves, particularly when they were being coerced or manipulated by larger criminal organizations. The brothers' cooperation with law enforcement had been crucial for dismantling the international network that had recruited them, and their testimony had helped other victims who had been similarly exploited by the criminal organization. 15 years after the theft, the recovered Bitcoin had appreciated dramatically in value, making the Bitfinex recovery one of the most financially successful law enforcement operations in history. The cryptocurrency, that had been worth approximately $4 billion, at the time of the theft was eventually worth over $20 billion when it was finally returned to the exchange and its customers. The appreciation in value allowed Bitfinex to provide full compensation to all customers who had been affected by the theft, while also funding a comprehensive cryptocurrency security research program that helped develop better protection measures for the entire industry. The exchange established the Ravensong Security Institute, which provided training and resources for cryptocurrency exchanges and law enforcement agencies working to prevent and investigate digital asset crimes. Lawrence and Evangelina Ravensong, the brothers' parents, had initially struggled with shame and guilt over their son's criminal activities, but eventually became advocates for cryptocurrency security education and family support programs for relatives of cybercriminals. They established a non-profit organization that provided counseling and legal assistance to families affected by technology-related crimes, recognizing that criminal activity often had devastating impacts on family members who were not directly involved in illegal activities. We learned that good people can make terrible decisions when they're under pressure or manipulation, Evangelina would explain to families dealing with similar situations. Our sons made serious mistakes and hurt a lot of people, but they were also victims themselves in many ways. Understanding the complexity of these situations is important for preventing similar crimes and helping families heal from the trauma of having loved ones involved in criminal activity. The Bitfinex case became a foundational example in academic research about cryptocurrency crime, insider threats, and international law enforcement cooperation. Universities around the world use the case as a teaching tool in courses about cybersecurity, criminal justice, and international relations, helping to educate the next generation of professionals who would be responsible for preventing and investigating similar crimes. As the cryptocurrency industry continued to evolve and mature, the lessons learned from the Ravensong brothers' theft remained relevant for understanding the complex interplay between technology, human psychology, and criminal behavior that characterized many forms of cybercrime. Their story served as a reminder that even the most sophisticated technical security measures could be vulnerable to human factors, and that preventing cryptocurrency crime required comprehensive approaches that addressed both technological and social vulnerabilities. The vanishing act that had begun with the theft of 69,000 Bitcoin had ultimately led to one of the most comprehensive and successful international cybercrime investigations in history, demonstrating that even the most sophisticated criminals could be identified, located, and brought to justice through patient investigation, international cooperation, and the careful analysis of blockchain evidence that provided permanent records of their criminal activities. In transforming from perpetrators to cooperating witnesses to eventual contributors to cryptocurrency security, the Ravensong brothers' journey illustrated the complex human dimensions of cybercrime and the possibility for redemption even after serious criminal behavior. Their case showed that understanding and addressing the root causes of criminal activity was often more effective than purely punitive approaches, and that former criminals could become valuable resources for preventing similar crimes when they were willing to accept responsibility for their actions and contribute to broader security efforts. The stolen Bitcoin that had once represented one of the largest cryptocurrency thefts in history had ultimately funded improvements in digital asset security and international law enforcement capabilities that protected millions of cryptocurrency users around the world from similar crimes. In disappearing without a trace, the Ravensong brothers had inadvertently set in motion a series of events that made the entire cryptocurrency ecosystem safer and more secure for everyone involved. The impact of the Ravensong case extended far beyond the immediate recovery of stolen cryptocurrency and prosecution of the individuals involved. 20 years after the initial theft, the case continued to influence cryptocurrency security practices, law enforcement training, and academic research into the psychology and sociology of cybercrime. The story had become a cornerstone example of how sophisticated technical criminals could be both perpetrators and victims, and how international cooperation could overcome the challenges posed by borderless digital crimes. Isadora Ravensong, now 52 years old and working under his witness protection identity as a senior cybersecurity consultant, had become one of the most sought-after experts in cryptocurrency security and insider threat prevention. His consulting firm, which specialized in helping financial institutions and cryptocurrency exchanges identify and address security vulnerabilities, had prevented dozens of potential thefts and helped establish industry best practices that were now standard throughout the digital asset ecosystem. His unique perspective as someone who had both planned and suffered from cryptocurrency crime made him exceptionally effective at identifying vulnerabilities that purely academic or theoretical security experts might overlook. He understood the psychological pressures and technical opportunities that could lead trusted employees to betray their employers and customers, and he had developed comprehensive training programs that helped organizations identify and address these risks before they resulted in criminal activity. The most dangerous threats to cryptocurrency security aren't external hackers using sophisticated malware, Lysander would explain to audiences at industry conferences and security training seminars. They're trusted insiders who have legitimate access to critical systems and who feel justified in abusing that trust because of personal financial pressures, ideological grievances, or coercion from criminal organizations. Understanding the human factors that create these vulnerabilities is just as important as implementing technical security measures. His brother Thaddeus had risen through the ranks of federal law enforcement to become the deputy director of the FBI's cryptocurrency crime division, where he oversaw investigations into digital asset theft, money laundering, and international cybercriminal organizations. His combination of technical expertise and first-hand experience with cryptocurrency crime had made him invaluable for developing new investigative techniques and international cooperation protocols that were now used by law enforcement agencies around the world. The division that Thaddeus helped lead had achieved remarkable success in cryptocurrency crime prevention and recovery, with a case closure rate that far exceeded traditional financial crime investigations and asset recovery percentages that had transformed law enforcement's approach to digital asset crimes. The techniques and relationships developed during the original Bitfinex investigation had been refined and expanded to address increasingly sophisticated criminal enterprises that operated across multiple jurisdictions and used evolving technology to obscure their activities. Every cryptocurrency transaction creates permanent evidence that can be analyzed and traced, even years after the crime was committed, Thaddeus would tell new agents during training programs. The challenge isn't gathering evidence, it's developing the technical expertise and international relationships necessary to analyze that evidence effectively and coordinate responses that can operate as quickly as the criminals we're pursuing. Agent Cordelia Stormwind had founded the International Cryptocurrency Crime Prevention Institute after retiring from the FBI, creating a non-profit organization that provided training, technical assistance, and coordination services to law enforcement agencies around the world. The institute had trained over 5,000 investigators from 80 countries and had facilitated the recovery of more than $50 billion in stolen cryptocurrency through improved investigation techniques and international cooperation. The institute's annual conference had become the premier gathering for law enforcement officers, cybersecurity professionals, and academic researchers working on cryptocurrency crime prevention. The event consistently drew participants from government agencies, private companies, and educational institutions around the world, creating opportunities for collaboration and knowledge sharing that had resulted in significant improvements in global cryptocurrency security. The Bitfinex case taught us that cryptocurrency crime is fundamentally an international problem that requires international solutions, Stormwind would tell conference attendees. No single country or agency has the resources and expertise necessary to address these crimes effectively. Success requires unprecedented levels of cooperation and information sharing between agencies that historically operated independently. Persephone Blackwater had leveraged her experience with cryptocurrency investigation into a distinguished academic career, earning a doctorate in cybersecurity and becoming a tenured professor at Stanford University, where she directed the Digital Asset Security Research Center. Her research team had developed blockchain analysis tools that were now used by law enforcement agencies and financial institutions around the world to detect and prevent cryptocurrency crimes in real time. The center's research had contributed to fundamental improvements in cryptocurrency security, including enhanced consensus mechanisms that made large-scale thefts more difficult to execute, and privacy protection measures that balanced legitimate user needs with law enforcement requirements for transaction monitoring and analysis. The work represented a new generation of cryptocurrency technology that learned from the vulnerabilities exposed by cases like the Bitfinex theft. The first generation of cryptocurrency technology prioritized decentralization and privacy above security and accountability. Professor Blackwater would explain to her graduate students and research collaborators. We're now developing systems that maintain those important values while also providing the transparency and recoverability that are necessary to protect users from sophisticated criminal enterprises. The Bitfinex exchange itself had evolved dramatically since the theft, becoming one of the most secure and trusted cryptocurrency trading platforms in the world. The security improvements implemented in response to the Ravensong case had been continuously refined and updated to address new threats and vulnerabilities, creating a comprehensive approach to digital asset protection that served as a model for the entire industry. The exchange had also established a victim compensation fund that provided assistance to customers of other exchanges who had suffered losses due to theft or fraud, recognizing that security vulnerabilities at any major platform could damage confidence in the entire cryptocurrency ecosystem. The fund had helped thousands of individual investors recover from losses, while also supporting research and development of improved security measures. CEO Helena Nightwind, who had led Bitfinex through the crisis and recovery process, had become a prominent advocate for cryptocurrency regulation and industry self-governance. Under her leadership, the exchange had worked closely with regulatory agencies around the world to develop standards and practices that balanced innovation with consumer protection, helping to establish the legitimacy and stability that cryptocurrency needed to achieve mainstream adoption. The theft was devastating at the time, but it ultimately made us stronger and more trustworthy. Nightwind would reflect during interviews about the exchange's recovery and growth. We learned that security isn't just about technical measures. It's about creating a culture of accountability and transparency that makes criminal activity much more difficult to execute and conceal. The international criminal organization that had recruited and controlled the Ravensong brothers had been completely dismantled through follow-up investigations that continued for over a decade after the initial arrests. The network had been more extensive and sophisticated than originally understood, with operations in over 30 countries and connections to numerous other cybercriminal enterprises that specialized in various forms of digital asset theft and money laundering. The final arrests in the case had occurred just 2 years earlier, when advanced blockchain analysis had identified the organization's remaining leaders who had been operating under deep cover identities in Eastern Europe. The investigation had required sophisticated undercover operations and had resulted in the recovery of additional cryptocurrency assets worth over $3 billion that had been stolen from various victims around the world. The success of the extended investigation had demonstrated the long-term value of patient, methodical law enforcement work that could pursue complex criminal enterprises across multiple jurisdictions and over extended time periods. The techniques developed during the investigation had been applied to dozens of other major cryptocurrency crime cases and had established new standards for international cooperation in cybercrime investigations. Lawrence and Evangelina Ravensong had transformed their family's experience with their son's criminal activity into a comprehensive support organization that had helped hundreds of families dealing with similar situations. The Ravensong Family Support Foundation provided counseling, legal assistance, and financial support to relatives of cybercriminals who were often traumatized by their loved ones' criminal activity and faced social stigma and financial hardship as a result of crimes they had not committed. The foundation had also developed educational programs that helped families recognize warning signs of potential criminal activity and provided resources for intervention and prevention. The programs were based on research into the psychological and social factors that contributed to cybercrime participation, and they emphasized early intervention and family support as alternatives to purely punitive approaches to criminal behavior. We learned that criminal behavior often develops gradually, with individuals making increasingly serious compromises of their ethical standards under pressure from financial stress, peer influence, or criminal organizations. Evangelina would explain to audiences at family support conferences and training programs. Families who understand these warning signs and know how to respond appropriately can often prevent criminal activity or minimize its impact through early intervention and professional assistance. The non-profit organization had expanded beyond cryptocurrency crime to address various forms of technology-related criminal activity, recognizing that many families faced similar challenges regardless of the specific nature of their relatives' illegal activities. The Foundation's comprehensive approach addressed both immediate crisis support and long-term prevention, helping families maintain relationships with criminal relatives while also protecting themselves from legal and financial consequences. The academic and research community had produced hundreds of scholarly articles, books, and case studies based on the Ravensong case and its implications for understanding cybercrime, international law enforcement cooperation, and cryptocurrency security. The case had become a foundational example in multiple academic disciplines, from computer science and criminology to international relations and psychology. Universities around the world had developed specialized courses and degree programs focused on cryptocurrency security and cybercrime investigation, often using the Bitfinex case as a primary teaching example. The programs had produced a new generation of professionals who combined technical expertise with understanding of the legal, social, and international dimensions of digital asset crime. The case had also influenced policy development at national and international levels, contributing to new laws and regulations governing cryptocurrency exchanges, international cooperation in cybercrime investigations, and victim compensation for financial crimes involving digital assets. The legal frameworks established in response to the case had provided models for other countries developing their own approaches to cryptocurrency regulation and law enforcement. 25 years after the initial theft, the cryptocurrency industry had matured into a regulated, secure, and trusted component of the global financial system. The lessons learned from the Ravensong case had contributed to this transformation by demonstrating both the vulnerabilities of early cryptocurrency systems and the potential for international cooperation to address sophisticated digital crimes. The 69,000 Bitcoin that had been stolen and eventually recovered had appreciated to a value exceeding $100 billion, making the case one of the most financially significant law enforcement successes in history. The recovered assets had funded comprehensive improvements in cryptocurrency security and international law enforcement capabilities that protected millions of digital asset users around the world. But perhaps more importantly, the case had demonstrated that even the most sophisticated criminals could be identified, located, and brought to justice through patient investigation, international cooperation, and the comprehensive analysis of blockchain evidence that provided permanent records of criminal activities. The Vanishing Act that had begun with the theft of cryptocurrency had ultimately led to unprecedented improvements in digital asset security and global law enforcement capabilities. The Ravensong brothers, now in their 50s and living under assumed identities provided by witness protection programs, had successfully rebuilt their lives as contributing members of society who used their unique experiences to help prevent similar crimes and support other individuals who had been affected by cybercriminal activity. Their journey from criminals to victims to ultimately productive citizens illustrated the complex human dimensions of cybercrime and the possibility for redemption and positive contribution even after serious criminal behavior. The story of their theft and eventual capture had become more than just a cautionary tale about cryptocurrency security. It had evolved into a comprehensive example of how international cooperation, technological innovation, and human resilience could overcome even the most sophisticated criminal enterprises. The case continued to influence policy, practice, and research in cybersecurity and law enforcement, ensuring that the lessons learned from their crimes would continue to protect future generations of cryptocurrency users and digital asset investors. In attempting to vanish without a trace, the Ravensong brothers had inadvertently created one of the most well-documented and thoroughly analyzed criminal cases in history, providing law enforcement agencies, security professionals, and researchers with invaluable insights into the methods, motivations, and vulnerabilities that characterized sophisticated cryptocurrency crime. Their failed disappearance had ultimately made the entire digital asset ecosystem safer and more secure for everyone involved, transforming their criminal legacy into an ongoing contribution to global cybersecurity and financial protection. The final chapter of the Ravensong saga unfolded 30 years after the original Bitfinex theft, when both brothers had reached their 60s and were preparing for retirement from their respective careers in cybersecurity consulting and federal law enforcement. The cryptocurrency industry they had helped transform through their criminal activities and subsequent cooperation had evolved beyond recognition, becoming the foundation of a new global financial system that was both more secure and more accessible than the traditional banking networks it had largely replaced. Lysander Ravensong, now 62 and still operating under his witness protection identity, had spent 3 decades building one of the world's most respected cybersecurity consulting firms. His company had prevented hundreds of potential cryptocurrency thefts and had trained thousands of security professionals in the advanced techniques necessary to protect digital assets from increasingly sophisticated criminal enterprises. The methodical attention to security vulnerabilities that had once made him an effective criminal had been channeled into legitimate purposes that had protected billions of dollars in cryptocurrency investments. As he prepared for retirement, Lysander reflected on the unexpected trajectory his life had taken since that fateful decision to steal from Bitfinex 3 decades earlier. The young man who had justified theft as rebellion against traditional financial institutions had evolved into one of the industry's most trusted guardians, someone whose expertise was sought by government agencies, financial institutions, and technology companies around the world. I spent years telling myself that cryptocurrency exchanges were corrupt institutions that deserved to be robbed, he would confide to close colleagues who knew his real identity. But I learned that theft is theft, regardless of how you justify it, and that the people who really suffered from our crimes were ordinary individuals who had entrusted their savings to those platforms. The guilt from that realization has driven every decision I've made for the past 30 years. His final project before retirement was the completion of a comprehensive cryptocurrency security framework that would become the industry standard for protecting digital assets from insider threats. The framework incorporated psychological screening methods, technical security measures, and organizational policies that addressed every vulnerability he had exploited during his criminal period. The irony was not lost on him that his greatest professional achievement would be a system designed to prevent crimes exactly like the one that had defined his youth. Thaddeus Ravensong had risen to become the director of the FBI's International Cybercrime Division, overseeing investigations that spanned multiple countries and involved digital crimes far more sophisticated than the relatively simple theft he and his brother had committed 3 decades earlier. His division had achieved unprecedented success rates in cryptocurrency crime prevention and asset recovery, establishing the United States as the global leader in digital asset law enforcement. His career had been marked by a series of major cases that had dismantled international criminal organizations, recovered billions of dollars in stolen cryptocurrency, and established legal precedents that were now used by law enforcement agencies around the world. The expertise he had gained through his own criminal activities had proven invaluable for understanding how sophisticated cybercriminals operated and how they could be most effectively investigated and prosecuted. As he prepared to retire from federal service, Thaddeus was completing work on a comprehensive training program that would prepare the next generation of law enforcement officers to address cryptocurrency crimes that were becoming increasingly complex and internationally distributed. The program incorporated lessons learned from hundreds of major cases, including detailed analysis of the psychological and technical factors that led individuals to participate in sophisticated financial crimes. Every criminal thinks they've found the perfect crime that can't be solved or traced, he would tell graduating classes of new FBI agents. But the blockchain creates permanent evidence of every transaction, and international cooperation has eliminated most of the safe havens where criminals once thought they could hide. The key to successful investigation is patience, methodical analysis, and recognition that most cybercriminals are more vulnerable than they realize. Agent Cordelia Stormwind, now in her 70s and serving as the Director Emeritus of the International Cryptocurrency Crime Prevention Institute, had overseen the training of over 10,000 law enforcement officers from more than 100 countries during her post-FBI career. The institute she had founded had become the global center for cryptocurrency crime prevention research and training, with regional offices on every continent and partnerships with law enforcement agencies, academic institutions, and private companies around the world. Her final major project was the completion of a comprehensive global database of cryptocurrency crime patterns, investigative techniques, and asset recovery strategies that would serve as a permanent resource for law enforcement agencies facing digital asset crimes. The database incorporated data from thousands of cases investigated over 3 decades and provided analytical tools that could help investigators identify patterns and connections that might not be apparent from individual cases. The Bitfinex case taught us that cryptocurrency crime is fundamentally an international problem that requires sustained international cooperation, she would explain to audiences at her farewell conference. The systems and relationships we've built over the past 30 years have transformed law enforcement's ability to address these crimes, but the work is never finished because criminals continue to develop new techniques and exploit new technologies. Professor Persephone Blackwater had spent 30 years advancing the academic understanding of cryptocurrency security and digital forensics, publishing over 200 research papers and training thousands of graduate students who had gone on to careers in cybersecurity, law enforcement, and financial technology. Her research center at Stanford University had developed many of the analytical tools and security protocols that were now standard throughout the cryptocurrency industry. Her final research project was a comprehensive analysis of how cryptocurrency technology had evolved in response to security vulnerabilities identified through major theft cases like Bitfinex. The research demonstrated how criminal activities had inadvertently driven technological innovations that had made digital assets more secure and more suitable for mainstream financial applications. Criminal attacks on cryptocurrency systems have functioned as unintended stress tests that have revealed vulnerabilities and driven improvements that might not have been developed otherwise, she would explain in her final academic paper. The Ravensong case and similar incidents have ultimately made cryptocurrency more secure and trustworthy than it would have been without these criminal challenges. The Bitfinex exchange itself had evolved into one of the largest and most trusted cryptocurrency trading platforms in the world, with security measures that were considered the gold standard for the industry. CEO Helena Nightwind, now preparing for her own retirement, had led the exchange through 30 years of growth and innovation that had transformed it from a relatively small trading platform into a global financial institution that processed trillions of dollars in cryptocurrency transactions annually. The exchange's security improvements, implemented in response to the Ravensong theft and continuously upgraded over 3 decades, had prevented dozens of potential thefts and had served as a model for security practices throughout the cryptocurrency industry. The exchange had also funded extensive research into digital asset security and had provided technical assistance to law enforcement agencies investigating cryptocurrency crimes around the world. The theft was the worst crisis in our company's history, but it ultimately made us stronger and more trustworthy, Nightwind would reflect during her final shareholder meeting. The security measures we developed in response to that attack have protected not just our customers, but users throughout the entire cryptocurrency ecosystem. Sometimes, the most devastating challenges create opportunities for the most significant improvements. The international criminal organization that had recruited and controlled the Ravensong brothers had been completely eliminated through investigations that had continued for over 20 years after the initial arrests. The final members of the network had been arrested just 5 years earlier, when advances in blockchain analysis had identified cryptocurrency transactions that could be traced back to the organization's original operations. The extended investigation had resulted in the recovery of over $15 billion in stolen cryptocurrency and had provided crucial intelligence that had prevented dozens of other major thefts and criminal operations. The techniques developed during the investigation had become standard protocols for international cybercrime cooperation and had established legal frameworks that were now used by law enforcement agencies around the world. Lawrence and Evangelina Ravensong, now in their 80s and still operating the Family Support Foundation they had established in response to their son's criminal activities, had helped thousands of families deal with the trauma and practical challenges associated with having relatives involved in cybercriminal activities. The foundation had evolved into a comprehensive resource center that provided counseling, legal assistance, financial support, and educational programs for families affected by various forms of technology-related crime. Their final project was the completion of a comprehensive research study that examined the long-term outcomes for families affected by cybercrime, including factors that contributed to successful recovery and reintegration versus those that led to ongoing trauma and social isolation. The research would inform future family support programs and help other organizations develop more effective interventions for families dealing with similar challenges. We learned that criminal behavior affects entire families, not just the individuals who commit crimes, Evangelina would explain to audiences at family support conferences. But we also learned that families have tremendous capacity for healing and growth when they receive appropriate support and resources. Our son's mistakes created opportunities for us to help other families avoid similar pain and to contribute to broader efforts to prevent cybercrime. As the 30th anniversary of the Bitfinex theft approached, the cryptocurrency industry organized a comprehensive conference that brought together law enforcement officials, security professionals, academic researchers, and industry leaders to reflect on the lessons learned from the case and to discuss emerging challenges in digital asset security and cybercrime prevention. The conference featured presentations from all of the major figures who had been involved in the original investigation and recovery efforts, including both Ravensong brothers, who made their first public appearances since entering witness protection 3 decades earlier. The brothers used specially designed voice alteration and visual disguise technology that allowed them to participate in panel discussions while maintaining the anonymity necessary for their continued safety. Lysander's presentation focused on the psychological and social factors that had led him to justify criminal behavior and the long process of accepting responsibility and channeling his technical expertise toward legitimate purposes. He emphasized the importance of early intervention and support for individuals who were being recruited by criminal organizations or were beginning to rationalize illegal activities. Criminal behavior rarely begins with major thefts or sophisticated schemes, he explained to the conference audience. It typically starts with small compromises of ethical standards that gradually escalate as individuals become more comfortable with illegal activities and more dependent on the financial benefits those activities provide. Families, employers, and communities need to recognize these warning signs and provide intervention before small ethical lapses become major criminal enterprises. Thaddeus's presentation examined the law enforcement techniques and international cooperation strategies that had been developed in response to the case, and how those approaches had been refined and expanded to address increasingly sophisticated cybercriminal organizations. He emphasized the importance of sustained commitment to international cooperation and the need for continued investment in training and technology to keep pace with evolving criminal techniques. The criminals we investigate today are far more sophisticated than my brother and I were 30 years ago, he told the audience. They use advanced encryption, operate across dozens of countries, and employ psychological manipulation techniques that make it extremely difficult for victims to recognize that they're being exploited. Law enforcement agencies must continue to evolve and improve their capabilities to address these threats effectively. The conference concluded with the announcement of several major initiatives that would build on the lessons learned from the Bitfinex case. These included a new international cryptocurrency crime prevention treaty that would establish standardized cooperation protocols for law enforcement agencies around the world, a global victim compensation fund that would provide assistance to individuals who lost money to cryptocurrency theft and fraud, and a comprehensive educational program that would help individuals and organizations recognize and respond to sophisticated cybercriminal recruitment and manipulation techniques. The initiatives represented the culmination of 30 years of work by the law enforcement officials, security professionals, and researchers who had been involved in addressing the Bitfinex case and its aftermath. The programs would provide resources and support that would help protect future generations of cryptocurrency users from the kinds of sophisticated criminal enterprises that had once seemed unstoppable. As the conference ended and participants prepared to return to their respective countries and organizations, there was a sense that the Bitfinex case had achieved a kind of closure that extended far beyond the original theft and recovery. The criminal act that had once threatened to undermine confidence in the entire cryptocurrency industry had ultimately strengthened it by driving improvements in security, law enforcement, and international cooperation that had made digital assets safer and more trustworthy for millions of users around the world. The Ravensong brothers returned to their respective retirement plans, knowing that their criminal past would always be part of their legacy, but also understanding that their subsequent contributions to cybersecurity and law enforcement had helped protect countless individuals from similar victimization. Their attempt to vanish without a trace had ultimately led to comprehensive improvements in global financial security that would benefit society for generations to come. The 69,000 Bitcoin they had stolen 3 decades earlier had appreciated to a value exceeding $500 billion at current market prices, making their theft and recovery the most financially significant law enforcement success in human history. But more importantly, the case had demonstrated that even the most sophisticated criminal enterprises could be defeated through patient investigation, international cooperation, and the combined efforts of dedicated professionals who refused to accept that any crime was too complex or too well hidden to be solved. In the end, the brothers' Vanishing Act had become visible to the entire world, creating a permanent record of both criminal vulnerability and law enforcement capability that continued to protect and inspire people 30 years after their failed attempt to disappear forever. Their story had evolved from a simple tale of cryptocurrency theft into a comprehensive example of how individual criminal acts could drive systemic improvements in security, justice, and international cooperation that benefited everyone who participated in the global digital economy. The stolen Bitcoin that had once represented the largest cryptocurrency theft in history had ultimately funded the development of security measures, law enforcement capabilities, and international cooperation frameworks that protected trillions of dollars in digital assets and helped establish cryptocurrency as a trusted component of the global financial system. The brothers, who had tried to vanish without leaving traces, had instead created the most thoroughly documented and comprehensively analyzed criminal case in the history of cybercrime, ensuring that their story would continue to educate and protect future generations long after they themselves had passed into history.